and welcome to the Spiritual Solopreneur Podcast. If this content resonates, please like and subscribe. Today, my guest is Scott Holmes. Scott is a quantum healing practitioner, transformational coach, and Amazon best-selling author whose work bridges science, spirit, and the human heart. A Reiki master teacher, polarity therapist, RYSE teacher. We'll find out more about that in a minute. Theta healer, universal white time healing practitioner, intriguing, and certified Find Your Voice coach. Scott blends a decade of study with the hard-earned wisdom of lived experience. Welcome, Scott.
Well, thank you very much, Bev.
You have a ton of wonderful tools in that toolbox of yours. I know we spoke briefly a few weeks ago, and I think one of the things we sort of said was that Reiki was sort of a gateway modality for some of these other things. Is that how it was for you? And if so, how did you get into Reiki then?
Yeah, so my wife had passed after a 20-year battle with breast cancer, and I was kind of left there talking with the cat, not getting very far with him, and not knowing where I wanted to go. A friend of mine said, "Hey, I'm gonna take this Reiki course." I'm like, "Okay, don't know what it is, but it sounds interesting." So took it and really intrigued. But the one thing that they talked about was doing self-Reiki. You couldn't take Reiki 2 because, of course, I wanted the next weekend to be Reiki 2. You know, you take Reiki 1, then you take Reiki 2. And so, right?
Makes sense?
No, you had to do 60 days of self-Reiki. And I went, oh, okay, I'll try this. So I started doing self-Reiki. And at the end of 30 days, it really sank in. And I started to feel all the feels. In caregiving for all those years, I had learned to put my emotions secondary or put them away, or I was a very good trash compactor. I pushed them down very well. And I started to feel the feels. I started to feel my body. I started to listen to my body. You know, for years I just pushed through everything. You know, if my shoulder was sore, you just ignored it, take a few ibuprofen and go on. But I started listening to it and really started with that. I had been doing yoga since probably for 10 years previous, but I started really getting involved in yoga and doing it on a daily basis, not just once a week. And it was amazing the change that happened in me. And went to Reiki 2, and you get just a feeling of the vibration of energy and I started seeing it. I didn't realize that I could really feel energy through knowing and understanding it and then seeing it in other people, not just myself, but other people. And I was hooked. Plain and simple. That was it. Okay. How do I do more of this? You know, I wanted to go down the street and say, "Oh, I see something wrong with your hip. Can we fix that?" You know, people usually had a very strange look on their face when I offered to do that when they didn't ask for help. So I had to calm my enthusiasm down for it. But each new modality that I found raised it. It was the next logical step for me. You know, I have a very logical mind, and I always thought, you know, every step was like math. You know, you have to learn this to get here, to get to here, and each step was a little bit different. And someone just shook their head at me and said, "Your path will never be that way because it's everywhere." You know, something, yeah, I'm sure you've done that too, gone down the rabbit holes. Here, it's over here, then you go over here, then you go up here, then you go over here, then you go over here, then you go over here, depending on what really translates for you in that moment. And hence the modalities that I've taught, that I've learned, that I've been shown, that I teach, because it was the next step for me, that evolution. You know, I don't know about you, but everything that I learn, I want to be able to share it. Absolutely.
Fabulous. So it's not that, polarity therapist logically comes after Reiki, and then Theta Healer logically comes after that one.
There is no
It
logic to
doesn't
it.
work
No,
that way.
it doesn't work that way. But for me, in my transformation in doing it, somebody said, "Well, explain what polarity therapy is." I said, "It's Reiki on steroids."
Okay.
Because it involves touch. You can do Reiki either hands on or hands off, and polarity goes through the meridians of your body to be able to, through touch, to be able to accelerate energy flowing through your body and to be able to clear any of those um, places where it's stuck. And that to me was, because I don't know about you, but when I've done Reiki with people, sometimes you try and you try and you still can't quite get there with bringing the energy through. And I found that with polarity, I had a different way to look at it, just slightly different. I mean, there's only so many body parts we have, right? The head goes head to toe. Okay, there's only so many um, meridians we have. There's only so many ways that energy flows through the body. There's only so many chakras. There's only,
It's a
it's
lot of
all,
chakras, mind you.
well, okay. So I've heard doing Ayurvedic, um, doing Ayurvedic work and listening to it. There was one yogini said, "Oh, there are 222 chakras," and then I was told by another that, "Oh, my teacher said that there are an infinite number." So we all know the straight seven, right? Which I use, but I use 13, which is unusual number, but it's those that are above and below, four up and two down.
Oh, okay.
So it's all of those in doing the work. I do self Reiki every day still, and what I find is in doing that, it brings me back into here, into my body. It reminds me about who I am, where I am. Every morning I try to do the meditation and then do Reiki and do yoga. And on the days that I, either get up late or I can't do it or the day gets away from you, the day isn't the same. I don't stand as tall. I don't stay as centered. Things don't feel quite in sync. And so that's what that does for me, is be able to maintain the integrity of my system as we walk through it.
Yeah, nice. So were you always, you said you started with yoga some years ago. Were you always kind of into energy or spirituality or anything like that, or did that come later?
It came much later, but I mean, I had a friend of mine who was a yoga teacher, and so we were at sitting at a function and sitting at the bar, and she said, I just made an offhand comment that yoga is just for bored white women, and just being flippant. And she looked at me because she'd been practicing since she was 17 years old. She'd been at it for 30 plus years. She said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Touch your toes." So, all right, here I go. And I get down and I reach all the way to my knees. And very embarrassed. But she very confidently said, "I'll see you on Saturday." And I ended up doing yoga for 5 years, almost every Saturday, to be able because I understood that really wasn't, in shape, not the shape that I wanted to be in. And in yoga, of course, I was the guy. I've always kind of been the unicorn. Um, having had daughters, I've been in brownies and Girl Scouts and dance troops and the like, and been around. So I didn't feel uncomfortable around women, but I didn't want the women to feel uncomfortable either. So I always made sure I was toward the back and out of view.
Out of the
And I
way.
realized I'm out of the way because I didn't want to cause any harm. But I also realized that in doing yoga the entire time, my eyes were closed, and that it was a very inward practice. And I am learning and I'm struggling and I'm trying to hold a position and my arms are shaking and And here's this 70-year-old woman just sitting there with this beautiful smile on her face and just holding it, and like she was born this way, right? And afterwards I asked Gladys, she was so funny. I said, how do you maintain that? She says, honey, have a few kids. It all comes easier, let me tell you. So so naturally, I just worked at it much harder. But it's that ritual I've found of giving that time to yourself on a daily basis. And for me, it's first thing in the morning. That really reshapes my entire day. That allows me to really be centered, to be grounded, to be in alignment so that whatever comes up in the day, I got this,
Awesome.
however it unfolds.
Yeah. So I'm always fascinated by somebody like yourself. So you talked about in your intro there hard-earned wisdom of experience, and you spent all that time as a caregiver and all of that. And then at the end of that, you come out of it and want to open a business and heal people on a large scale. Whereas, if it were me, my next stop would be a beach somewhere with a very large margarita, and I would be there for a number of years. But so my question is, how does that work? Or did you
I
take a
would,
bit of a break?
I really haven't. I think because most of my adult life was really working and caregiving, that a lot of the interest that I had because when I was 18 years old, I'm thinking, okay, I want to teach, I want to write, and I want to travel. And I'm thinking, I'm 18 years old and I'm going to head off to college. Well, I got married when I was 19. I had my first daughter when I was 20, and by 25, I had three. So what ended up happening was I had three jobs as well as three daughters to make sure that my wife could stay home and take care of the children. Excuse me. And that devoted my life to family, to whatever the needs were. Um, the other story, and I haven't told you that part, is my youngest daughter at 13 months old came down with herpes encephalitis, and it stopped just short of killing her. Um, we brought her into Boston. She was in a PICU, and they saved her life, but it left her multiply handicapped. So for the next couple of years, my wife and I had her at home and 24-hour care. And you can imagine how limiting that is, especially when she has two older sisters. We made the decision that we could not do that anymore. So Massachusetts is one of the few states in the country at the time that had pediatric nursing home beds. They had 265 beds for multiply handicapped children. And she was certified and went there, and she got the most incredible care. She was 45 minutes away. We would visit twice a week. Um, and the consideration was her older sisters. Her older sisters had the ability to live a quasi-normal life. Yes, because when she was home, we had to constantly say no because she was ill or the doctors or whatever else. And we wanted to make sure that they had the ability to live their life. Um, Amanda passed when she was 15, but we got another 14 years of our daughter that we would never have had otherwise. So the caregiving, one followed into the other. My wife's breast cancer, and breast cancer journeys, if you've known anyone, are very up and down. She went through uh, multiple bouts of chemotherapy, radiation, FDA studies, um, all radical stuff until it just kind of wore her down, and eventually she passed at home. So all of that is insane, and just to share the experience that when I when my wife passed, it was just very empty. My kids were in their own families. They had their own kids. And so I had to kind of redefine myself. And in doing that, I went back to my 18-year-old self. What do I want to do? I want to teach. I want to learn. I want to write. And I want to travel. So every year, I pick a point. I've been to Bangkok, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, India, Greece, Peru, and just 2 weeks ago I just got back from Egypt. So every year I've taken I put a pin in it and gone out of the country and gone to sacred places
Mm.
and traveled with people who are looking on shamanic journeys. My buddy, I was sitting with him, and we're the same age. We just had our 50th high school reunion, and he said, "Everybody our age is retiring. Everybody's going. They're moving to Florida. They're they're playing golf. They're doing all this." He said, "You're doing the opposite. What is wrong with you?" I said, "I'm fulfilling my life mission. This is what I was put on this earth to do. The whole space for people to be able to allow them to be better, to allow them to find their authentic selves, much like I found myself. And so I use all the tools. Every time I learn a modality, I have a new tool in my toolbox. And so I learn a new way to breathe. I learn a new way to meditate. I learn a new way to move energy. I learn a higher calling. I, you know, I don't know how far you go with the woo here. But when you're brought in and to find your dragon, to find your unicorn, and to find your um, past life as an ET, um, it it impacts you. It makes you see this world that we're living in a much, much different way, all the way down the line.
Yeah. Well, I believe that we're all star seeds one way or another. That, but nice that you were able to experience it.
Yes, I've sought people out who do that. I know people who deal in dragons or in angels or in you know extraterrestrial Pleiadians or whoever you want to go to, and they all have different roles in the universe, um, and the things that I've seen. I have a friend of mine. We call it the magic carpet ride. Now I don't do any drugs or mushrooms or anything else, but she took me on meditations to other worlds and was able to do that.
Wow.
So if you're open to it, those things are available. And what you might think is imagination, and here's the funniest thing. You're in Vancouver, I'm in Boston. I have friends in England. We experience the same thing at about the same time, and we have the same understandings. How does that happen? Is it coincidence? Is it just arbitrary? Or is it real? Is that the reality that we're looking at, how we're looking at it? So, in doing the energy work, in my mind's eye, I see things. I don't see things, I can't see things. Um, you wonder if it's imagination or if it's real. And when someone you haven't spoken to says they had the same experience, it kind of confirms it.
The sign, definitely. That's fantastic. Your book, tell me about your book. It's called From
From bur from burnout to burning bright.
Beautiful.
Started this in August. Our publisher, Laura DeFranco, from Brave Hill Publications, challenged me because I had written in a dozen books and a dozen collaborations already. And she said, "It's your turn." I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. No, it's your turn. It's about time you lead. I said, okay. I said, but I don't have something that's that pressing, she says, okay, let's just say you were going to write a book. What would you write? And the funniest thing, I'm sitting on that porch down the Cape, and it came out and plunked right on the paper. It said, From Burnout to Burning Bright. Because I had been dealing with clients with burnout, because I had been speaking with a friend the day before who was totally burnout from work. He didn't know how it got so bad, so quickly.
Mhm.
And so I realized that with burnout, with all of the changes that are going on in the world, in our lives, that people didn't feel grounded. The ground underneath them was shifting and shifting so fast they couldn't make decisions, and they felt this overwhelm of trying to make the right choices without having being grounded into something solid. So as I talked to people, I gathered up 24 other uh, writers. They were friends. They were people I trusted. And I got very selfish with this book, by the way. There's 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 some incredibly beautiful, wonderful people, and I call all of them friends. And they shared the tools about how to realize if you are in overwhelm and burnout, how to prevent it, how to get out of it, and how to maintain the integrity of your body and of your life through all these tools. For me, burnout was a lifetime or an adult lifetime of caregiving, and to where I didn't know who or what I was or who I could be. I have one of the authors who is Deanna Cotton out of the Midwest, and she has ALS. And she is probably one of the most inspirational people I know. She lives life in the minute. She says, I'm going to die, but that doesn't mean I can't live every minute that I have left. I had a friend who had ALS. I had a cousin who passed from ALS. I do hospice work here and was just given a client who has ALS, and Deanna said that she would speak with her. It is very limiting. I don't know if you've been around people who've had really, really serious conditions, but it's very limiting. Your entire world revolves around it, and most people don't understand it. And so Deanna said that she would talk with her to be able to give her inspiration, to be able to compare notes, to be able to help her through all of the ordeal that she's going through. Unfortunately, ALS is a life sentence. It doesn't allow for uh, healing.
No.
What I do is I allow her to relax her body in doing Reiki with her, my client from hospice, so that she can have a respite from all the pain that she's going through, all the stress her body's going through, to be able to relax. And it works. And that's the funny thing about energy is it's that important. And when you're you create a safe space for someone, amazing things can happen.
That's a gift. That is such a gift for her, from you to be able
Absolutely.
to do that, and a gift for you to be able to do it.
But I also found in doing hospice work, and it's kind of I do that in my wife's memory.
Mm.
And because they were there when my wife was going through that, and I didn't know how anybody could do that work on a consistent basis. And it took me about 5 years out from my wife passing that I was able to finally kind of step into that. But I feel like I get and receive more than I ever give in doing working with um, those patients that are moving on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, with Reiki too, you get the benefit of the healing that you're providing as well. That's what I've always heard about Reiki.
So what I do is I do a day of Reiki at the hospice center. It's about 5 miles away. And I do an entire day from 8 to 4 to 8 hours of Reiki, half-hour sessions. And I invite anyone who wants to come, volunteers, secretary, nurses, doctors, whoever is in on that day to be able to come and have a very quick, basically 20-minute Reiki session. And I get so many reactions from just that because in the caregiving, nurses, doctors, caregivers, they don't receive very often. They give of themselves, give of themselves, give of themselves on a regular basis. And they forget about accepting. I tell them that when they come in, this half hour is theirs. There are no expectations. You can fall asleep, you can do whatever, but let's walk through this session. Half the time I get tears because there are things that come up when they relax that they realize are there that they haven't given time to. And it's part of what I give back to hospice is for the caregivers. And after 8 hours, someone says, how do you do that for 8 hours? It's like, when I come out of there, I am walking about 2.5 feet off the ground. And it takes me about 3 hours to come down. I have to have chocolate and just, herb tea and just try to calm everything down because I have been moving energy all day. And you're absolutely right. When you're moving that kind of energy, it lifts you up.
Yeah. Yeah. Chocolate, huh? Is
Chocolate is very grounding, okay?
that
I'm
right?
telling you, dark chocolate is very grounding. Oh, yes.
I believe you.
And having a sweet tooth, just
Oh.
it goes with it.
So thinking about people who are, for the folks out there who are, for whatever reason, feel or think they are kind of on the verge of burnout, whether it's work or who knows. Is there something you can recommend people can do on a daily basis or something to kind of center themselves and do a bit of band-aid work on the burnout
Doing
themselves?
the Band-Aid. So before I tell you specifics, but I really believe that we have the opportunity every day to move everything one click. We have the ability to move it one click, and it changes our perceptions. That one click is the time you spend doing daily your daily habits that become rituals. The difference between a habit and a ritual is you're absolutely present when you do the ritual. There's one thing it's okay. I put my keys down in the same spot every day, and I put my same keys down in the same spot every day. And the next morning I go and they're not there. Well, I wasn't thinking about when I put my keys there. Maybe I didn't put my keys there. Hold on. So it's that repetition, and your mind thinks you do it, but you're not really present when you're doing that act of putting the keys. So a habit is something you do on a regular basis. A ritual is something you do with presence, with intention. It's like with yoga. There's two types of yoga. One's for exercise, and the other one is for meditation and intention.
Hmm.
And you can do that with almost everything. And that's why I always come to breathing. I had a school principal, and she came to me, and she's one of these people that are very, very nervous and really uptight. And she says, "Yeah, I've always been this way." And I said, "Okay. Have you ever tried box breathing?" "What? Oh, what is that?" I said, "Okay. Here's what we're going to do this. It's going to take 20 seconds. You have 20? Yeah, I have 20 seconds." I said, "Okay." So you breathe in to 4, you hold it for 4, you breathe out for 4, you hold it for 4, you breathe in for 4, and you do that 4 times. And she looked at me and said, "Wow, that works." I said, "Yes." when you feel yourself getting anxious, I said, excuse yourself, go to the bathroom. A lot of moms, the only time they ever get any quiet time is in the bathroom, right? And even then, it's questionable. But being able to just do that breathing and the consciousness. And the other thing is when you're counting, there are no thoughts that come through.
That's what.
It quiets all the thoughts down because you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And you do this 4 times, and it only takes half a minute. But what it does is all of a sudden the shoulders come down, the heart rate comes down, the shaking comes down, and all of a sudden you're a little more grounded in your body. And it's something as simple as that small tool that so many people can use. Breathing, we do it all the time, but we do it unconsciously, right?
Yeah.
We don't even think about it. I don't think about it mostly. But when I'm doing breath work, it's preeminent. It's the most important thing. Being able to kind of see it in your mind's eye as you blow out through your mouth and see the breath and feel the breath. Get the breath all the way down to your hips, when you breathe in, and then when you breathe out, just getting all that, clearing it. And you feel different when that happens. So your body can control how you feel, how you're centered. And that's really the way we're supposed to be. That's how we're built.
Well, thank you for that. I love that idea, and especially that you mentioned doing the counting, because my thought was, okay, I'm going to be going over my to-do list while I'm doing this breathing, right? So you got to give me
Right?
something to do.
So it's when you're counting, and I've done this, I've used this, you wake up at 2:30 in the morning, which is too early and too late. It's a terrible time to wake up and your body wants to stay awake. I do that breathing, and sometimes I don't even make it to the fourth time before I'm asleep because the mind is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. It kind of gets bored, and so decides to go back to sleep. And I've used that in that aspect to be able to calm everything down. Because there's nothing worse than being awake from 2:30 on and then having to go through your entire day, getting up at 6 and having the eyes.
Exactly. It throws you right off.
It really throws you off,
Oh, thank
honestly.
you for that. That's awesome. So, what final message would you like to leave our audience with?
The final message is in doing the work for yourself and with yourself, you have no greater gift than to give that time to you. As moms, as dads, as people going through really tough jobs or going through a really tough time in life, giving of yourself to yourself instead of to absolutely everybody around you, even for 5 minutes a day. I've had so many people say, I don't have the time. You do have 5 minutes that you can spare to give to yourself so that you can stay in balance, so that you can stay grounded, so that you can be better for those people around you.
Fantastic. 5 minutes. 5 minutes, guys. That's all it takes.
That's
Get
all it
yourself,
takes to start.
yeah, to start. Thank you so much for that. And how do people get hold of you, Scott, so they can take advantage of all your fabulous tools?
Well, I thank you very much. It's 𝐟𝐨𝐫𝐿 is the .com is the website. Scott at 𝐟𝐨𝐫𝐿.com. It shows what I do, what I can do, what we do, and just letting people know that all these things sound kind of weird if you don't know what they are. But most of my clients say, "Oh, we're doing Reiki," and sometimes I do everything but Reiki. But it's just the act of allowing the energy to move through and with you.
Right. Whichever modality it is, it's
Doesn't matter
still
it
energy.
doesn't matter the flavor, right? It doesn't matter the
Exactly.
flavor. It just
All ice
matters
cream
that
is good,
I agree with that. Yes.
especially chocolate. Well, thank you so much for being here, Scott. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Bev.
Thank you. And my name is Bev Young, and I help spiritual and conscious entrepreneurs get more credibility and visibility online with websites they love and that work. If you'd like a free review of your current website, let me know. See you next time. Bye, Scott.